Apparently there's a reason to stay up. Midnight Toonami's taking over the TV.
Let's go! It's showtime!
Toonami, the Midnight Run. 5 hours of your favorite Toonami programming, past and present.
Now that could be fun.
Don't sleep on it.
Kids love it.
On the next all-new episode of Invincible Fight Girl.
We got unfinished business, don't we?
The Perm Gang? How? How can they be here? Now! No! Things are different. Now, I'm a wrestler. And a real wrestler wouldn't back down.
Invincible Fight Girl. Saturday at midnight on Toonami. Next day on Max.
Magic.
Gravior.
Muscles.
You're not like ordinary folks. I'm more direct.
You do know this is magic school, right?
Marathon.
I'm in the middle of something. Sorry.
Get buff for the holidays with our Mashle Marathon.
Next Saturday, starting at 1 a.m.
That was awesome!
Only Toonami on Adult Swim.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Toonami Therapy. We're recording on December 12th of 2024. I'm Michael.
Yo, hello, I'm Tommy.
And this is, as always, our podcast where we talk about Toonami, anime, and a whole lot of other things. Often those other things are more than the others, and usually those are just kind of tangents, so. All right. I don't think we have any new news to talk about, unless actually I will just double check very quickly to see if there is anything that was just announced in regards to Toonami. I don't think so. Yeah, it looks like we yeah, it doesn't look like we have anything new yet, so I guess we'll just move into it. We start with the Toonami series where we've got, Invincible Fight Girl, episode 7. So in this one, that girl we met in the previous episode, well, it turns out that she's, this is the thing that I was going to say last week, but since you hadn't seen it, it wouldn't make sense. Throughout the whole episode, thinking, yeah, she's totally their daughter, and she's angry at them for fighting, right? I was completely correct. That's it. So she had some plan to make them fight and have all their henchmen defeat each other, and that would solve things, I guess. But the heroes don't want them to do it, and they're like, oh no, that's not great. And they end up wrestling and all this. What's her name? Birdie, that's her name. Andy ends up, going against them. Then there's, basically to skip through stuff, she then more or less hulks out, as they say. I mean, that's basically what happened. She gets really angry, and then it gives us a technobabble explanation of how this stuff made her muscles super big and stuff. And then I guess her parents and the other people think, oh no, it's a monster, and drive her off. And then everyone feels kind of, and then our heroes are just like, yeah, well, I guess those parents were actually really awful and did. So maybe they shouldn't have actually stopped her? Is that what we're supposed to get from this? And then I guess they realize, oh yeah, we had that plot about having to get those 10 perfect strikes. Maybe we should get back to it. And thus the episode ends in a kind of surprisingly grim fashion when you get down to it. Yeah, that's our episode.
Yeah. I thought it was actually pretty good, I have to say. One of the better ones, I think, of this series, at least.
Yeah, I think it just kind of went a little over the top with things. Especially because, the previous episode, when we set all this stuff up, it was, kind of goofy and lighthearted. Oh, these people are just, stupid and they're fighting over dumb stuff. But then it's like, oh, no, we're supposed to treat it really seriously. And just goes, I mean, I guess with that sort of ending, I mean, that's kind of what it says. Yeah, some people are totally beyond help, which, I mean, I guess you can say is not is like, okay, you can say that's kind of realistic in some ways, but it just goes so bad with all those, like, oh, she hulks out and everyone thinks she's a monster and throws things at her and she has to run off. And I'm like, okay, that was kind of extreme. That was like the issue I had. It just a series that up until this point has mostly been kind of funny and a bit lighthearted, is just suddenly does this. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Really.
all right, so we'll move on. We'll go to Mashle episode 6. So let's see. In was it six? No, this was episode 5. Yes, sorry, 5. So they all are just dividing to the dormitories, and I feel, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Basically, the guy that they I think fought against in the previous one, Lance, that's his name. He like finds out that they have not, Mash and Finn have not done like the homework and tries to help them, and like uses stuff to make food, but Mash just keeps making cream puffs with it. Then we kind of get through that stuff, and we also get introduced to another character who's convinced that who keeps thinking he's the main character. Like literally, he's like, I'm the main character of the story. So basically, then they end up having to go into a forest to I can't remember. They're doing something there, but the important thing is that they end up having to fight against another guy who then beats the guy who thought he was the main character, and then and then our big cliffhanger, well, besides that, is that it makes Smash drop his cream puff.
I thought it was a pretty good episode. I mean, the cream puff thing, it was like, okay, you're using that joke a little too much, but at the same time, I thought it was pretty funny. So I'll give it a pass. It's pretty much exactly what everyone says. It's One Punch Man meets Mob Psycho meets Harry Potter. So but I do like it, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a funny series. I've liked it because you can definitely see, as people have said, there's of all the series, I would say, I mean, like the strongest influences would be One Punch, well, the ones you mentioned there. But I think in regards to the Harry Potter stuff, it mostly really just kind of takes the general setting of it for that. And it's not really so much an actual parody of that, but the comedy is really especially similar to One Punch Man, but I think it does it better than One Punch Man because Mash is like kind of overpowered and stuff, but I kind of feel like the joke is like a little more varied than just, well, Saitama punches someone and they lose. Like the stuff he does, like, oh, he's able to fly on a broomstick by moving his feet so fast as like a helicopter. Like it's still, the joke is still basically, oh, he's so physically strong he can do crazy things, but it's not just, hey, I punch you and I win. Wow, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So a good series, and it's and I'm glad it was on Toonami. So I'm glad Toonami added it. Probably the best thing they've had in for a while.
Yeah, really.
It's a shame. It's a shame it only started now, so it's a little too early to put it on our end of year rankings, because I think a bunch of the Toonami stuff isn't going to end up very high, and I would have really liked to have this series on it.
Yeah, it's too late. There's no way we can include it because it's only half a season or so,
Yeah. So, but hey, end of next year we'll be able to do it.
See if we remember it.
I mean, the series is I think like 24 episodes, so we will still have a good amount next year.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's 2 seasons unless they decide to do the thing where they only show the first season and then quit. So we'll see, but I'm expecting we'll get both of the seasons. All right, so Blue Exorcist, episode 6. Basically, they end up. Basically, this is the Food Wars episode of the series because it turns out. Yeah, that one of the the food is made by this little monster guy. I don't think he's a demon or anything, but I can't remember what they call him. And so yeah, Rin is. Yeah, basically, a bunch of stuff happens. They end up being a sort of cook-off against each other, and then they become friends because they're both really good cooks. Then there's some other weird stuff where it gets angry at these other people for when it thinks they've insulted their cooking, but they manage to calm it down, and then everything goes back to normal with that. So yeah, this was actually, was this series before or after Food Wars? Let me see when it actually premiered. I suddenly need to check. Okay, it started then. I think it actually preceded Food Wars, but let me just double check when exactly both of them started. Yeah, this series premiered 3 years before Food Wars, and this is early enough. So maybe Food Wars got its idea from this chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about food, just like the Mashle episode was about food. Unfortunately, we didn't get a clean sweep of food because, you would think if we were going to get a clean sweep with food, we'd get it from Luffy, being hungry or something. But, yeah, just an average episode.
Well, Sugar did offer him food, didn't she? I think. Yeah. Let's actually move on to that. One Piece episode 697. So I'm glad you reminded me as we watched this episode, the idea, let's just try to see how much filler we can spot.
Yeah.
Because that was an interesting experience. Especially okay, just to describe it really quick. Sugar wants to turn Luffy and Law into dolls, and so she's going up to them to try to trick them. I guess they don't know she's Sugar. I can't remember if they were around for the meetings on that, but they apparently don't recognize. And Usopp's like, "Oh, I gotta knock her out to stop her," and then he fires, and then it freaks her out. She faints, and everything's good. And it took basically, we had an episode devoted to Usopp getting a shot ready and then shooting the shot, and that was the episode.
Yeah.
This took like half a chapter in the manga.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, and we saw so many incidents of padding. Like I was looking at all like the little pieces of padding, but then you were like, yeah, that entire bit was completely thrown in there by the and because I mean that was hilarious how they're showing that how long they showed Usopp trying to aim that shot, and they just kept showing that over and over again, and then finally he fires it, and then they show that super slow too.
Yeah. What was interesting was when I had the manga chapter open because I was trying to compare them, and that made me realize some stuff was padding that I might not have noticed norm before, like the stuff like because in the manga when Sugar goes up to them, she just goes up and like Luffy's like, oh, who are you? And then you don't see anything more directly of that. It's just from Usopp's perspective, and he's like, no, he mentions like, oh, Sugar's getting closer to them, I have to like fire this and stuff. But in the anime, you see way more stuff with her like pretending to be this lost girl and all this stuff, and they're not really taking her seriously. So there's that. There's also the part where Usopp imagines himself missing. That's new there. That stuff is actually not so bad because at least it kind of feels like it flows a bit naturally. But then so much of the other stuff is let's make sure this goes slowly. Okay, let's make sure we get the reaction shots on everything. So yeah. Also, one other thing, I think I mentioned at the start of Mashle I would say something, and then I never got around to saying it. I was just going to say I thought that the anime skipped over something, but I checked and it didn't skip over it. So if anyone was wondering what I was going to say and forgot, that's all it was. Okay. But in One Piece, it's yet again what could have been a pretty cool episode is padded out so much that it's just yeah. One day we will have our One Piece Kai. All right. Anything to add?
No, not really.
Okay. So that's One Piece. Now, so like we mentioned before, while Toonami Rewind is just a bunch of Dragon Ball reruns, Dragon Ball Z Kai episodes. We're just kind of going to be skipping it and maybe coming back afterwards. So
yeah, I only saw the 4th of the 4 episodes. Like I guess I tuned in and it was the last one, and it was like, oh, Ginyu got turned into a frog. And I was like, okay, well, that resolves that conflict. So I was like, okay.
And then until he manages to swap with Bulma, and then they just swap him back, which is the sort of thing I didn't realize it when I watched it originally, but oh yeah, that was total filler. It just all this stuff and it swaps back to what it was before. And Dragon Ball Z Kai had to include it even though it's pure filler, because the way that like some of the scenes are animated, you can't like cut around it. They unfortunately, in terms of actual important stuff, had references to that in it. So they had to include that in Dragon Ball Z Kai. Okay, so we get Yu Yu Hakusho episodes 26 and 27. So Toguro shows up and says, yeah, I didn't die. And is saying, yeah, I was at like 20% of my actual strength in that fight. I'm not sure how he knows the exact percentages. And then tells Yusuke that he has to go and compete in the Dark tournament because I guess the guy wanted a tournament arc. So Yusuke basically has to gather up Hiei and Kurama and Kuwabara, and they do a bunch of training for several months. And then they go off. They get Yusuke comes in with a new member who's just called the Masked Fighter. Then they go then they're going to the Dark tournament where there's a whole lot of demons and stuff who fight each other, and they're going to be there and have to fight them. On the way, though, it turns out, you got to fight the guys on the boat to decide who actually gets there. I guess that's when he did later on in Hunter x Hunter, where they did the whole like boat part actually being a being like a test. That was much quicker. It was just like, oh, everyone like fell asleep, except for the main character. So I guess all of them are disqualified. Here they actually had to fight it out.
Yeah.
So then they make it there, and then they're gonna go in the tournament, and then they happen to meet some of the people who are in against their first round. It's kind of like, I think, the stuff you would see in Blue Lock, where of course you get the preview of the people they're going to fight in their next game. And that's our episodes.
Yep. So, well, I guess I can't really ask, but I'm figuring, like Kuwabara, that fifth member has to be that old woman. But maybe I'm wrong, and we'll.
I'll just say it is one of those things where it's either it's super obviously Genkai, the old woman. So that means either it is Genkai or it's just really trying really hard to fool you into thinking it's Genkai, and then it turns out to be someone else.
Okay. Yeah. I was kind of bored by the first episode of these two. The second one was a little better. But there was a lot of stuff that just felt so predictable. So, I'm like, it's like only one team can make it. Well, that automatically means that they're going to be the ones who make it. And I guess now they're going into that hotel where they meet the people from before, and Yusuke is just sleeping. Like, what's the reason for him sleeping?
He's just really tired from all the training he did. That's what it says.
So it's basically a way of like lowering the power of the main team because they can't have him winning so easily, I guess.
I think it's just a source for jokes.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess they were okay. I just wasn't. I didn't enjoy them as much as some of the episodes from the previous arc.
Okay. Well, it is basically all set up stuff, and yeah, you do kind of have to wonder, like, okay, they fight all the enemies, well, they win, and you already knew it was because, and I mean, I guess you could say, oh, they're all really strong, but now we're training, we're thinking, well, yeah, but they were able to beat random, like, demon guys before, so I guess the main plot point of that is just to confirm, yes, the masked fighter person is really strong. But don't think we had to spend as much time on that. I will say I do appreciate the fact that Toguro is alive and is being set up as like the final enemy of this arc to fight, because if he had just died in the previous episode, that would have kind of felt, considering like they spent a bunch of time kind of building up his character, it would have felt really weird to say, okay, here's this character who's evil but seems to kind of have a sense of honor to him, and oh, well, he's dead, so, and that's the end of this arc. So having him actually stick around makes a previous arc feel like it mattered a little more. All right. Then we've got Oshi no Ko episode 24.
Okay, so Ruby realizes that the dead person is the doctor who treated her, but she doesn't realize that the doctor is Aqua. So that was a little confusing to me. We got a scene that I was very disappointed about where Aqua kisses Akane. I wasn't very happy about that. Um, they got to do their little uh, uh, music video. And let's see. Well, it's like now Ruby is getting all concerned about this about who killed him and killed I. And so now Ruby is like kind of doing the same thing Aqua was doing, and Aqua's kind of doing the opposite. So I don't know. I was really confused about what was going on in this episode. So um I didn't like it that much. And not just because he kissed Akane. I just was very confused.
The issue I kind of had with this episode was that it feels like it's simultaneously the end of a season and the beginning of a season.
Yeah, yeah, I could feel that.
So it felt kind of weird to end it here when it felt like, yeah, it's the end. Oh, but it also feels like we're just starting new things. So it was a little weird. Also, it's kind of weird that they like do the music video thing in the song and they say, oh, it's getting all these views. And I'm like, we saw the music video. It didn't look at special at all.
Yeah.
And the song was like, just okay. I think this is one of those problems where it's easy to say, oh, it's great when, it's in manga form. But then when you have to actually, show all of it and, like come up with the and sing it and stuff, it's you suddenly think, oh yeah, this doesn't seem as good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's that. And, oh, there was something else I wanted to mention. There's also all this weird stuff with this like girl with crows who's saying all this ominous stuff like she knows about all the supernatural stuff going on. Although this is hearsay, but I definitely heard a number of people when the series ended complain that plot doesn't really go anywhere. So I that could be wrong. It's just if that's the case, it does make me think, well then gee, what was the point of introducing her?
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't great. Just kind of ended. So, yeah, I will say this is probably one of the they had a hot springs bin, and this is probably one of the least bits of fan service I've ever seen in any of those things. That is not a bad thing. I'm fine with that. But I was just thinking, oh yeah, wow, that is you do the hot springs and then you don't have any fan service, even though this series runs in a magazine where you can just have straight up nudity in the manga. Okay. So that's the end of season 2. The thing is, I didn't watch the first season. I read the stuff in the manga, but that was so long before I saw the second season, I kind of forgot a whole lot of it. So, oh yeah, by the way, I wanted to double check. The girl with the crow, she never showed up in season 1, did she?
No.
Okay. So it's a little harder for me to compare it to that, but I think, from what I remember, I kind of feel like this season was a bit of a step down.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I loved the first season. Loved it so much. And this season was quite a step down in quality. It wasn't nearly as good. I mean, the first season was able to do so much, and this one it's just never really committed to any main storyline. Like it's like, okay, well, Aqua's not, doesn't need the search anymore, so that's over with. And um, and then it doesn't get brought back up until like the very end. And now it's like, okay, so Ruby is going to be searching for the killer, but we just kind of got left there on a cliffhanger. So, yeah, I think it was good, but I'm not sure it was as good as. Well, it definitely wasn't as good as the original season, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So, So I guess just a few comments to make for people. Yes, we do have a third season announced, so this isn't the end of the anime. We're going to keep going. I should also mention, if anyone is curious about, if you've seen this and you want to switch over to the manga, this adapts through chapter 80. So that's where you would want to start. Thank you very much, Oshinoko Fandom Wiki, for having this information. It does mention that the final bit, the stinger of the guy who's like killing this girl and is presumably the person who killed Ai and their father. We see him. That's apparently something from a later chapter that they just put in there to tease you. So, but yeah, you start with I think you start with chapter 81, but if you want to be sure, you can start with chapter 80. And we're slightly less than halfway through the manga at this point. So, yeah, we'll see how it is. I mean, I assume we'll be watching this if it gets another season, even though I have seen some people say, this is a part where some people say that it was after this point they thought the series kind of went downhill, but people all say that about a lot of things, so we'll just see it and decide.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on. We'll go to Re:Zero episode 56. In this episode, there's a bunch of setup to Subaru giving a speech, and then he gives a speech.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, I mean, there is some other stuff, but that is the bulk of the episode. So, we get some stuff. Amelia does talk with Al. We find out that Al just got the reason he was calling that place was because he just got some, I don't know, cell phone basically from one of the bad guys. I mean, not an actual cell phone, but it might as well be. And talks to Amelia, and there's all this stuff. And we do at least get an explanation about why Amelia just doesn't run off. It's like, oh, well, then you just take it out on all the other women here. So, okay, we got an explanation there. We get the speech from Subaru, which was decent, I thought. And I feel I've got... It's weird because I feel like I do have a bunch of comments on things, but I'll just get in to them. There's a weird bit here. Garfield, when they're talking about why Subaru should give the speech, he says that Subaru and Reinhardt are the only ones that have defeated the Sin Archbishop, but Reinhardt never did that. So yeah. I was confused by that, and I tried to look into some things because I pulled out the light novel and how it translated it. Now, Garfield might have said something slightly different in the anime. I don't know if it's the exact quote, but what he says in there is he mentions he's talking about Subaru, and here's a quote. Here's a man who's already beat one archbishop in this town occupied by cultists. There can't be anyone better for the job. Maybe the sword saint Reinhardt if he were here, but there's only Subaru Natsuki. So now he's saying, okay, the two of you would be the best to do it, but Reinhardt's not here. Also, you've defeated a Sin Archbishop. I also looked at the subtitles originally. The English subtitles had basically the same thing of him saying they've both beaten it. The Spanish one, interestingly, more clearly he said that you've beaten it, and he's saying you and Reinhard would be the only two to do this. He's not talking about like past, like the English one has him do. He's talking specifically about who should actually give the speech. So I don't know if maybe the Japanese was kind of ambiguous in it, and like the English just translated it this way, with the translator not knowing ReZero well enough to realize that the statement was false. But I just figured I wanted to mention that it looks like it was some kind of translation error.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not like this episode. I thought it was boring. And the Garfield stuff, I just really hate Garfield as a character. But I was like, okay, we wasted half this episode about them talking about what they're going to do and nothing really happening. So I'm like, okay, well, that means that the second half of the episode, they're going to actually do stuff. No, it's just Subaru giving a speech and going on and on and on and on and on. And then everyone saying how great that speech was. And then that's it. That's the episode. So, yeah, not my favorite episode of ReZero, that's for sure. In fact, I decided that I was going to move it down a couple of spots in my year-end ranking because of that. I was like, oh no, I'm everything's set in stone. Well, maybe things aren't set in stone yet. So yeah,
there's still one episode left to win you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know now that it's not the number one for me now.
Okay. Yeah. So one final comment I wanted to make, which was something I found, maybe they did this for time, but again, in the light novel, I know this because I actually did read up some of like the web novel way back in the day, and I read some of the light novel, but then eventually kind of lost interest. Like, well, I'm just reading essentially a polished version of the thing I just read. So it is interesting because they more explicitly, when Subaru's done, we find out that, yeah, they had actually all written a speech together, but Subaru just kind of got mixed up midway through and went off script. But everyone says, yeah, no, you managed to bring it together and it worked. I liked when one character just said, yeah, I was afraid that you wouldn't mention the part where you said you beat the Sin Archbishop, but I'm glad you got there in the end. So I was a little surprised they kind of cut that part out. Maybe they just didn't because this episode was 29 minutes. They just may not have had time to fit in that conversation. So, yep, we got one more episode. Then we'll be going on a break. The second part of this season will start airing, I think, in February. So we might not be getting to it right away with some of the stuff we'll be watching, but we will return to this sometime next year to watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right. And next we've got so many things because we decided, well, we do, for some scheduling reasons, we decided to add in Burn the Witch, so we got two. All right. Kaguya-Sama. Episode 41. Did I get these episode counts wrong? Did I get the right ones for the other things? Yeah, I had the right one.
I think you got it right. That sounded right to me.
I got the earlier ones right. ReZero was actually episode 57, and Kaguya-Sama was 41. Those were I got the previous ones right. Those two I got wrong. I didn't update them.
Okay.
Okay. So episode 41, Kaguya-Sama. Basically, let's see, how do we get through this? Yeah, basically there's a whole lot of talking, and then Kaguya and then the two get together formally. There you go. That's your episode. Okay, there's more to it than that, but yeah, Kaguya and Shirogane get together now at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a very underwhelming way to end this series, I guess. I mean, is there going to be anything more?
Oh, there's plenty more to the manga. I assume.
Oh, there is.
There is.
Okay.
This is not
Okay.
the end of the series. I
Oh.
I was going to talk about it, but they actually skipped over a bit of stuff to get to this thing. So there's definitely a lot more. Now, I don't think they've announced a new season yet, but I'm going to but even if they just never come back to this, there is at least more to the manga. I think we're about, like, I don't know, 2/3 through it. I'll double check.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going while I check.
Well, that's good to hear, because I was thinking, okay, this was the end of it, and there wasn't going to be anything more, and that's how it ended. But I'm happy to hear that there's more of this. But I still was disappointed, though, by the episode, because I just felt like not enough happened, really, and I would have preferred to have seen more. So, yeah.
So one thing that yeah, okay, 2/3 was an overestimation, but we're over halfway through, so there's still plenty left. I also thought it was kind of like that. What was interesting was, so I read this part of the manga quite a while ago, because I just was like, okay, I think I had been spoiled that they get together. I kind of wanted to see what had happened. There's some stuff. The way this did it was a bit different. So there's a part where they kind of go on the sort of date, and then it skips forward a bit, and before we actually get like the actual confession to each other, and then it like clearly there's some stuff, and it shows, yeah, at some point they definitely got together. Then it kind of goes back and shows, but before we return to them, it shows what everyone else was doing during that time, all of their plots, and then it comes back to them, and we get this stuff and the confession and such. And I kind of feel that sort of made it work a little better, but I guess, and I was like thinking, okay, so it will end at the part where they kind of just start going on the date, and then we'll like have like all the other stuff in the actual confession. That'll be in season 4. But no, they moved that stuff forward here. And one thing especially, they like just like not skipped over, but like when you see the montage of a bunch of stuff happening, that occurred in more depth in the manga. Like the bit where Hayasaka is trying to distract Chika so she doesn't like interfere with the two of them. That's like just presented quickly without any dialogue, so you aren't even sure exactly what's happening. So yeah, there was a bit more build up, I think, to it. Even if some of that build up is okay, hey, we'll see what these other characters are doing. Okay, now we're back to this.
Yeah.
So, which I think made it work better. But personally, here's the thing that bugged me quite a bit about how it handles it. Now, in this one, when they're together, then Kaguya like says to him, "I love you, please be my boyfriend." That is not what the manga does. In the manga, Shirogane says, "I love you," at the same time Kaguya says, "Please be my boyfriend." It's a simultaneous confession, but this switches it so just Kaguya says it, and then he reciprocates. And I didn't really like that, because it seemed to me that was an intentional choice. After all this stuff of each of them trying to get the other to confess first, they just do it simultaneously. But then this changes it by having one of them actually say it and then the other, which just felt like it went quite against what the scene was trying to accomplish in the manga.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't know since I didn't see the manga. So, but what is that? Does that mean that uh, Shirogane wins the wins? You know, I
In
mean, we you should have had a narrator saying results Shirogane wins. You know.
I know that's the problem. That it switches it so that it is that even if it doesn't say that, effectively that makes him win. When again in the
Yeah.
manga did not do that. That was like I thought the point. Neither one. They just said it at the same time, which I thought was really good. In fact, technically, if you need to play tiebreaker, like I said, it's simultaneous, but it's a big 2-page spread. And since you're reading right to left, you will read Shirogane's line and then Kaguya's line. So, in terms of the order you read the text, Shirogane actually won in the manga. No, I'm sorry, Kaguya won in the manga because you read Shirogane's first. So yeah, that was something an anime only person wouldn't know, but the fact that they deviated in that way, I mean, in some ways it's minor, but in other ways I feel like it just switches the thing. It feels like a reverse, like Han shot first thing.
Yeah, yeah, it does feel like that. You're right. That's similar. But here's the problem is that I never knew. So if you didn't say anything, like I would just assume, okay, that's how it happened. So
Mhm.
um that's uh disappointing that they did it in the way they did it. What was there some sort of logistical reason they couldn't have both talk at the same time? I
I
don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea why they switched it like that. It just felt very weird to me that they do it like that. So yeah. So I think there in this season there was some good stuff, there were some funny bits, but I kind of wonder if maybe instead of just having a movie specifically for this, they should have formatted it more like they did in the original manga, because this and like spread some of this stuff out more over um a season. Well, maybe it wouldn't have been like a full season, but I mean just have some of the stuff where we kind of have the gap that makes this moment I feel have more emphasis. The fact you're wondering, oh, so well, what happened? When did this end? Then you get it. And they decided to just kind of squish it all together in order so that you got the resolution in the movie.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I guess we'll probably see all the stuff that they skipped over in the next season with the other characters. Yeah, I think it was decent, but I just feel at the end of this, it felt a little underwhelming, and I think it worked a little better in the manga. Well, not just a little better, a decent amount better, but still, it wasn't bad, just could have been better.
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll end with a series we just kind of decided to check out on a whim because it was short and we're near the end of the year. We had
Yep.
Burn the Witch episode 1. It's do you want to do this one?
No, I'd rather you do it because I was a little confused. So
Okay, so basically this the way they did this was a little weird. I'll get to
yeah,
that. So we basically were in this basically we find out there's these girls who are like witches and they fight dragons. So they do a bunch of fighting of dragons. There's also this guy they work with who dragons are attracted to, and they and we also find out that like the organization that runs this thing wants to kill him. Oh no, yeah, this was kind of just throwing you into the setting and I guess introducing you to things in it.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I was very confused. I have to say that. I and to be honest, I still don't understand what this is. The dragons kill people, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
or what? Dragons kill people, so they gotta basically kill the dragons. Is that it?
That seems to be it, yeah.
Okay, so that there's nothing really else to it.
Not yet. It's so here's like the weird thing that I discovered because I looked into it afterwards. So this is all based on like a kind of short manga the author created. I think supposedly there was going to be like it was going to come and be like an actual serialized series, but that hasn't happened yet. So this first he had like a single one shot. It was like just a one shot and it had the characters and world and stuff. Then there was a sort of there were 4 chapters that were released as sort of a continuation of that. These episodes are an adaptation of the sequel chapters. They only, and there's, if you go to Crunchyroll, I missed this the first time. There is a second season listed for this. Now that second season is just 1 episode, by the way. But that second season, which came out after these, is the adaptation of the original one shot that took place beforehand.
Oh man.
And it would have made a lot more, and which also, from what I remember, like does a better job setting up like the characters and the setting. So it's a little weird that they did it in this order. So yeah, I might have suggested we do them in an opposite order if I had known that, but I guess we'll do this and then we'll go and watch the second season episode, which, for the record, because I need to make it clear, that came out after these episodes. So that's, even though it came out before originally in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
Also, apparently, these 3 episodes were actually originally one like 63-minute film, and then they just cut them up into 3 episodes, kind of like they did the Kaguya-Sama
Kaguya-Sama,
stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of followed it, but I had already read some of the stuff, so I remembered some things. But yeah, this would definitely be kind of confusing to someone who was just dropped into it. But like I said, for the anime, this was the one they decided to adapt first.
Yeah, a little confusing to me. That's my biggest takeaway from it.
Yeah. I want to definitely say one thing. So the manga was written by Tite Kubo. He's the guy who made Bleach. And also this short-lived manga before that called Zombie Powder that actually got published in English because Bleach was so popular. They decided, hey, this guy made this manga beforehand. Sure, it was a super big flop in Japan and lasted like 4 volumes, but whatever, we'll translate it. You know, they did the same thing with the previous manga of Tatsuya Endo. He made Spy Family, so they like released Tista and what was the other one called? Like Blade of the Moon Princess or something. Because Spy Family is really popular. Sure, let's bring in his older stuff, even though it was like canceled. One was canceled after 2 volumes and the other after 4. Yeah, it is Blade of the Moon Princess. So yeah, it was okay, but definitely is kind of a weird introduction to it. I am surprised that he just hasn't come back and continued this. Kubo hasn't really done much since this. I think he did like a Bleach sort of one-shot sequel thing, and that was the one I think I was talking about last week, where I said we suddenly get basically what happens in it is we get this big reveal that that changes the way you see a bunch of stuff, and there's a new villain and he's like, hi, bye, and that's it. Anyway, we've got some more, so we'll see the rest of this. Oof. Well, even though we dropped off Toonami Rewind. We still talked a whole lot because there's all this extra stuff we watched.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we can give our thoughts on what we thought the best series were this week.
Yeah, I have a really hard time choosing this week because not much was really all that good. So, let's see.
Oh, before you get to Ed, I realized once again there's something I was going to say, but I forgot because I went down tangent. I wanted to mention in terms of Burn the Witch, because I was mentioning again by the author of Bleach. I want to say one thing he's definitely good at. He is, as you can see in the series, he does make very distinctive character designs. You look at just the giant amount of characters in Bleach, and here's this new series, and still the characters look pretty distinct from each other, and even the characters in Bleach. A lot of times when a mangaka starts a new manga, you can look at them and say, oh yeah, that's just basically this character from this previous series they made. But I didn't really get that feeling with this, unless there's like some character from Bleach I'm forgetting that they did reuse things for. But yeah, the characters definitely did feel pretty distinct, not only from each other, but even from like the Bleach characters.
Okay, I got mine.
Okay.
Third place will be Oshi no Ko. Second place will be Kaguya-Sama. And first place will be Mashle.
All right. For me, I think I'll reorder that a bit. Well, no, actually mine are going to be a little different. Wait, let me just double check what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think I will change a little. I will put in Yu Yu Hakusho in third, then Oshi no Ko, then Mashle.
Yeah, Yu Yu Hakusho is right there with Oshi no Ko, in my opinion, but I just figured it was the last episode of Oshi no Ko, so I'll give it to that. And that moves Oshi no Ko into a tie for second place in the standings. These do not affect my end of year standings, but the top three thing, I keep track of how many first, second, and third place things. And well, obviously, if you're a series that's around a long time, it's going to be better for you. But
how much has it benefited One Piece?
Well, One Piece is right in the middle, so it's not at the bottom.
I'm pretty sure we've seen more episodes of One Piece than any other series we've watched this year.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we topped it with Sailor Moon, but because we saw like 40 something episodes of that. There might have been some weeks One Piece was off that was less, but no, I think One Piece was probably even higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, and that's all of our series, I guess. I don't have anything else to really say too much about it. So about things. So for next week we are we're dropping some of our series because we just finished it. So for our we'll watch the regular Toonami stuff, and then it's just we got 2 episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho, last episode of Re:Zero, and then episode 2 of Burn the Witch.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. We're finishing all these series at the end of the year, so we'll just kind of have a nice bunch of new series at the start of the year.
Yep.
And I guess that's everything. So I don't have anything else to say. So everyone, we will see you next week.
And now, here's a special behind-the-scenes look at the War of the Rohirrim.
Lord of the Ring アニメーションで映画にしようっていう話があった時に、最初に思ったのは、実写映画でトールキの世界をどうやったら描けるかっていう。思うけど、本来アニメーションが持っている力というかね、魔力って見たことがない。
It's a dance, and you see this with Kenji when he is directing. Visually, he is a master.
You think I am afraid of you?
You should be.
The horn of Helm Hammerhand will sound in the deep one last time.
Nerd.
The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim is exclusively in theaters now.
Hey, Insomniacs! Finally, there's a reason to stay up.
Enemy has fired multiple missiles.
Launching anti-missiles now!
Let's do it! The Midnight Toonami's taking over the TV.
Okay, Sam, let's go get her! Yeah!
It's about time.
Toonami, the Midnight Run. 5 hours of your favorite Toonami programming, past and present. Don't sleep on it. Love it. Only Toonami.